Okay. Remember when COVID-19 first hit the world? We stayed home and no longer saw our classmates, family, and friends every day in our lives. When you came back to school eventually, of course, you would still be pretty familiar with your best friends. But when we see people walking in the hallway, some of them you are unfamiliar with and perhaps only have their WeChats. We don't exactly feel as if we haven't seen these people in a long time, that there's a sense of their existence unconsciously in our minds all this time. Why is that? Okay, that sounds a little abstract and confusing. Let me start with this question. How many of you have posted pictures of weather scenes on your social media? Sunsets, sunrises, rain, snow, fogs, etc. Or have seen other people doing it? Well, I certainly have. And I guess most people have too. So, as you can see, we have a close interaction with weather. Weather is able to synchronize human behavior. And going straight to the topic, the weather has the power of integrity, bringing together people's moods, and they observe the same weather. On WeChat, Instagram, and Weibo, it's a common phenomenon that people worldwide share the behavior of posting weather posts. And usually, these posts go along with our personal feelings towards certain types of weather. For example, we post about blue skies and the snow. We write comments like, "What a beautiful day," with a happy face. Or, "I love the snow," such and such. And there comes the magical moment. Pause to think. When everyone, originally minding their own businesses at home or outside, checks their phone occasionally and sees a post of a magnificent, colorful sunset with orange-pink clouds and stops what they're doing for a second and looks up. Imagine everyone in Beijing, each entirely different individual, lifting their heads up and looking up at the same time and seeing the same beautiful view. That resonation among people connect and spreads as if a highly contagious disease in the city. Just pause to think how amusing that would be. Now we hear radios, read the news, watch TV, and receive common information in our everyday lives, but there are rare cases that connect all human perceptions together this easily. And in my observation, weather here is one of them. So, let's talk more about weather. We probably all heard the old and famous British small talk topic of the weather in London. And so today, modern data and articles have also shown that weather, in fact, is commonly accepted as the most popular and best small talk topic. Now this conclusion was proposed by Erlin, who has written and gone deep in her graduate research about the struggles faced by those with social anxiety disorder since 2007, and she found that the topic of weather is most welcoming for people with SAD. Like, I could literally walk up to any person during any circumstance and say, "Lovely weather, don't you think?" Or, "Looks like it's going to rain." Or to be a little flirty, I can say, "Did you order this beautiful weather?" Okay, so here, data is provided to reflect the popularity of weather. And we can see this is data from 2012 and 2014. And although there are some other ranks above weather, our weather here is still ranked as number 6. Impressive. And this word, I don't know how to pronounce it, is ranked as number 12, which means weather in Italian. On to more modern days. Let's see, the first top choices of people's top hits have been changed. But our weather here is still in our top 12, which is pretty impressive. Okay. And weather's popularity is more obvious when people are physically interacting in reality. When me and my friends walk together to lunch and notice piling snow on the sidewalk or clear blue sky above our heads, these scenes will naturally merge into our conversations. Now, what's so special about this? In these moments, our brains turn excited with our resonation with other people, and we feel happy. And elaborating more on weather's influence, positive weather, good weather, typically brings positive effects to our moods and motivations. When the sky is blue, the sun is warm, we know it's time to step outside and play badminton, frisbee, basketball, or just simply take a walk. And sometimes, when our motivations are high enough, we might also write an essay or two. Doesn't have to be specifically essays, it can be articles, stories, but you got the idea. Okay, so now I know some of you may argue that you don't exactly share the same feelings of happiness when you see a beautiful sky. Or the rain in classical perceptions should evoke a negative emotional response, but actually makes you feel happy. And yes, I acknowledge that people have different perceptions in perceiving weather, and that although there is common resonation among people, our individual attitudes towards different types of weather will always be unique and diverges personally. However, this leads us to branch further with the topic that there can be certain patterns to people's perceptions that reflects regional diversity. You see, in different cultures around the world, different types of weather generally represent different meanings. In an essay that I once read about, The Light of the West and the Shadow of the East, it is, in my opinion, one of the most epiphanyizing essays on different cultural perceptions of natural scenes. And as it says in classical Western view, sunsets represent hope. And so people enjoy watching sunsets. While in typical Eastern perspective, sunset represent remorse and make people associated with depressing thoughts. That's where a lot of our ancient Chinese poems came from. So as seen in artworks, paintings in ancient China does little to emphasize the lighting. They use a touch of grayness over the sky without specific mentions of the sunlight or any weather symptoms, and focus more on mountains, trees, and the presentation of the picture as a whole. We can see the contrast that Asian Western artworks are brighter and more saturated, with a highlight and outstanding use of light. And most of them are religious paintings that tells a story. And it is obvious here the difference in perception from different cultures. In the Chinese perspective, the artists deliver their message through the overall description and painting of nature. In terms of 写意山水, 借景抒情, using the scenery to express the artist's feelings, and also to the extent of 借物喻人, using objects to analogize people. They really use the pure facial expression of people and their body language to create meaning. And relating this to weather and the scenery's appearances itself doesn't evoke an immediate intense response from the audience, but the audience's personal feelings towards the paintings redraws the weather that they see in their eyes. And that is also why a lot of Chinese paintings, or ancient Chinese paintings, are accompanied with poems that reflects the personal feelings of the poet. But on the contrary, as we can see, people people in paintings are protagonists and focused in Western artworks. The color of their clothes, texture of their hair and skin, ready to send a vivid message that the artist is trying to propose. The inner feelings of the audience in this case does little to influence their perception of the painting because the detailed outlines and sketches strongly pull the audience into the scene. As if we're close up to the explicitly drawn people in the painting and engaged in their world. And this, in Chinese terms, is the feeling of 身临其境. In short, the visual shock in comparison is much greater. The direction and form of light serves not as a protagonist, but to emphasize the people and event happening in the painting. Now, these may seem to stretch a little far. In our everyday lives, weather is also proven, scientifically proven, to have negative influences to our productivity, which is different from the positive ones mentioned before. And now we introduce the disorder of seasonal affective disorder, which is defined as a type of mood disorder associated with seasonal changes and commonly seen as depression arising during winter months. And here we can see the typical symptoms of this disorder as abnormal appetite, loss of energy, depression, and trouble sleeping and oversleeping. There's so much more. And also, scientists, although they haven't found an explicit and certain cause to this disorder, they have found that sunlight is one of the most possible causes. And we can see here in the graph that what varies the most throughout these seasons is the change in sunlight. And fortunately, there will always be solutions to issues, imperfect but possible ones. And in this case, we will be introduced to the important principle of sublimation, defined as channeling negativity into energy and motivation to create a better purpose. A typical example of sublimation would be, as mentioned previously, Chinese poets writing poems to the feeling of depression and relating them to nature. And since we were young, we have known many ways of creations as outlets of our thoughts, like writing diaries, recording videos of ourselves, or through formal artistic and literary production. But on the level of sublimation, we need to push these creations a step further into developing deeper meaning, like combining videos into films, organize stories under a specific topic, and collect songs and artworks and portfolios to record and keep. Now, there are infinite possible creation outcomes that can be generated from these small and simple feelings and thoughts. And by combining them together into bigger values, I doubt your inspirations will ever exhaust. Now, picture yourself as a 101 alpaca or peacock. You wander around the campus every day, and your wool and feathers constantly fell to the ground. This happens unnoticeably, but if you take the time to collect them, all those feathers and wool, you'll eventually be able to make them into a feather coat, a feather hat, not a feather coat, or a wool coat, and which are more meaningful things that can be generated from the seemingly invaluable pieces. And this is the idea that we can turn things as small and simple as our temporary moods and thoughts into creations as big as books and movies and exhibitions and so much more. And you know, it can all start with observing the weather of today. Thank you.